Lee Anderson has been announced as Deputy Party Chairman. Darren, what do you think of this news?
Yeah. It's absolutely obvious to me, though, Jess, why Rishi Sunak has done this. Right? He knows that got a party membership that didn't want him to be there, right? That likely wouldn't have elected Greg Hands as party chairman if they were given the chance to actually do so, which, by the way, I think they should be given the chance to do so. He knows that he's going to be in short supply of party members, the grassroots, that are actually willing to knock on doors and hand out leaflets advocating a vote for the Conservatives. Lee Anderson MP, though, on the other hand, was actually voted backbencher of the year last year in a poll of the Conservative grassroots by the influential Tory website Conservative Home. So I dare say, Jess, that actually Rishi, in making Greg Hands, who he's close to, his party chairman, is actually trying to throw a bit of red meat to the Tory grassroots by making Lee Anderson his deputy. But one Daily Mirror, or Daily Misery as I call them, journalist Jess, tweeted referring to Lee Anderson as the Red Wall Rottweiler. Well, I dare say it was intended as actually an insult. But if you ask me, that's just what the Conservative Party needs. A Rottweiler barking to keep them honest. That won't let them slide on Brexit. That won't let them slide on the small boats crisis. That won't let them slide on their pledge to actually, if we can't control our own borders, take us out of the European Convention on Human Rights. On gender ideology, not pushing the same madness that Sturgeon's pushing on Scotland. On actually recognising that we're already up to our eyeballs in taxation, right? Those sort of things, I think he can be a Rottweiler for, keeping the Tory party honest. So I'm delighted personally.
I mean, it's refreshing to see an actual Conservative in the Conservative Party for a change. I think with Lee Anderson, the left despise him, like absolutely
Oh,
despise
yeah.
him. Like the nickname 30p Lee. Like he's talking about private charity here, and I think that's a very Conservative message rather than relying on the state, which inevitably will fail the poorest in society. Like, I don't get why the socialists want to put so much power in the government when it's the Tory government who they supposedly hate. Like, why do they want to give them more power? It makes no sense. But Lee Anderson, on the other hand, he recognises the power of individuals, of community, and I think that's so important and essential for society.
It absolutely is. The sort of fragmentation of society, the fabric of society, is doing real harm. I mean, I can remember when, I was a kid and my mother used to go out to work under a Labour government and she'd be taxed on her almost minimum wage salary, only to be handed it back in things like child tax credits and all these other things. Why not just let her keep her money, right? I couldn't understand that when I was old enough to actually understand what was going on with the tax system. But ultimately, Jess, I actually think Lee Anderson has been a champion for common sense, the kind of common sense that you just mentioned. Because if you ask me, he's a proper sound bloke. We've had him on this channel before. I've come to really like him. I respect his bravery. But it's pathetic that I even have to say and use the word bravery in the context of a politician. But these days, it is actually brave to speak up for small c conservative values like personal responsibility, like actually saying we should, as a nation state, be able to control our own borders, like respecting democratic mandates, the Brexit one, like it being madness to deindustrialize and degrowth the British economy via net zero, making everyday Brits in a country that emits a mere 1% of global CO2 emissions, both colder and poorer. And it's ridiculous, again, to use that word brave when, men like me granddad were either down the pits or fighting in the Korean War, as he did, for the values of freedom and liberty that our flag represents. But Lee actually gets blokes like me late granddad, in his part of the world in Ashfield. Lee used to be a miner. Lee gets how tough it is for people in the real world today and how more state, bigger state isn't the answer. And that's why I actually choose to use the word brave there, because he is going against the consensus. He's going against the orthodoxy of the moment. And I think there are far too few, Jess, in the Conservative Party that actually have the gumption to do that. I've printed off here a anonymous statement to the Sky News political editor, Sam Coates, or Sly News. And it's from an unknown Tory MP. And I did print this off, Jess, so I dare say I'll be getting a nasty tweet from Greta or something like that. But it says, Lee Anderson is everything that is wrong with the Conservative brand presently. He seems to rejoice in deliberately provoking and making aggressive, simplistic statements that fail to recognise the complexities of the issues facing the country. If this is the new Tory party, many will be forgiven for deserting it. What complete and utter rubbish. I've never heard so much guff in all my life. And actually, if Lee Anderson rejoices in simplistic statements, it's because there's a simple answer, Jess. In Brexit, we voted to make our parliament supreme. We voted to say no to 50% of our laws emanating from Brussels, right? Not London. It's simple enough for Parliament to legislate to stop the small votes, to give us proper border controls, to put in place an energy policy that's more in line with, Glasgow or Glamorgan or Grantham and not Teenage True and Greta. That's what Lee cares about. That's what I care about. That's what the Tory party ought to care about. So anonymous quotes from so-called conservatives like that, I think, show that Lee Anderson is the right bloke for the job.